So this is the episode I have the most problems with. And I know all 4 of you are probably chomping at the bit wondering, what's the deal with episode 3? But what do you mean there's not 4 of them? Wait. It got how many views? In how long? Jesus. Likely it was the 20-minute shorter runtime or that neon blue thumbnail. Probably a good quirk of the old algorithm, but thanks. If you like that one, or the first one, or this one, then please share it around, like it, subscribe to see the final episode and more analysis vids that I might make in the future. Comment about your favourite thing in the show. I wasn't exactly expecting this kind of turnout. Anyway, I have the most problems with this episode, but I enjoy it nearly as much as episode 4 and 2. Episode 1 was the most run-of-the-mill. Episode 2 is the most standout. Episode 4 has its great standout moments too, but episode 3 has a lot of massive problems, balanced perfectly by amazing elements. So let's get into it. Episode 3, Scrambled Eggs. You'll get that joke in the end. Plot. The episode opens on Vaggie, Charlie, and the little goat servant things, which are apparently called Razzle and Dazzle, that, we've only ever seen in the pilot and once in episode 1, putting up a banner to celebrate Pentius's 3rd day at the hotel without incident, with Charlie refuting Vaggie's worries about it only being 3 days by looking on the bright side, that Pentius hasn't done anything worrisome in that time, even if it is a short time. Then Pentius wheels in a massive cannon, bragging about wanting to shoot the other residents with it. Apparently he's bought weapon parts from a demon overlord called Carmilla Carmine. We'll see more of her and these scientist demons in a later scene. So Pentius says that he doesn't trust the other residents as they're being too nice. There's more of nifty being nifty here. So the girls decide to focus on trust building for their next activity. The ground rules being no weapons, no plotting, and no minions. Pentius tearfully gives up his egg boys, but they're so obedient and dumb that they don't really have a problem with doing what they're told and leaving. Charlie trying to console Pentius here is hilarious. Cut to Alistair having breakfast in a conjured bayou in his room, where Vaggie asks him to take Pentius's egg boys out. Humanely. Here we have our first major subtitling error of the show, which even Viv mentioned on her Twitter. Anyway, Alistair agrees even if he doesn't get to kill them. Next we have a scene of the crew's first trust-building exercise. There's this weird interaction with Charlie and Vaggie here, but it's probably nothing. Charlie hands off control of the trust exercises to Vaggie, as she trusts her, and since Charlie trusts everyone, she thinks Vaggie has more of an insight in how to gain trust in others. Vaggie immediately goes into this drill sergeant mode, and talks about doing a trust fall. Believe it or not, this silly drill sergeant shtick might actually be lore-relevant. We'll get to that later. Each person will say one thing about themselves that makes them vulnerable to say, and then throw themselves off the stage into the arms of the other guests. Charlie goes first, telling them all that she loves them, before falling into the arms of Vaggie. She's the only one to catch Charlie, so Vaggie tells everyone to catch Angel next. Angel...
Well, how about this? I love to suck...
I swear to fuck if you say dicks.
popsicles, you sicko!
What else is Angel? But in this scene, and in the last one, we see the first to react to his jokes is Husk, seemingly finding this persona quite abrasive. Husk is also the only one to catch Angel. This will all become important in episode 4. Pentius is next in line, and says that he doesn't want anyone to catch him since he can't live without his minions. Nifty, Vaggie, Charlie, and Husk all catch him, so more of Pentius being melodramatic. Next is Nifty, who...
Sometimes I kill mother bugs in front of their children as a warning to others.
is nifty, and no one catches her. This leads to more Nifty. This is what I said about wait until episode 3. During Nifty's cascade of pain, Charlie takes Vaggie aside. Charlie expresses her concerns that the trust exercise isn't working, but Vaggie is insistent that Charlie put her trust in her for a reason, and she'll get it right. Angel has an idea for an activity that will build trust. For some reason, Vaggie goes along with this. She was shouting at Alistair for bringing alcohol into the hotel in the pilot, but this clearly sexualized idea that Angel has is allowed to go ahead somehow. Probably for the sake of the later joke, but it's a bit out of character for Vaggie. Maybe because we know that this need to get it right for Charlie is more deep-seated than she lets on, and she will truly accept anything right now, even if it has a slight chance of working. We cut to Alistair and the eggs, and judging by his expression, Alistair is close to cracking. The eggs have a lot of good questions, to be honest.
Are those your ears or is it your hair? I can't tell.
Then we meet one of my favourite new characters, Zestial Maud. When I first saw him, I was blown away. It's an amazing design, and the voice is awesome too.
Alistair, how fare thee this day?
He's clearly an important character, with his giant frame, spider-like design, rattlesnake-inspired sound design, amazing voice with effects, but he's framed like an important character, like one we should know. Oddly, I'd never seen this design before, unlike a lot of the other Demon Lords that are framed like we should be fangirling over them about now, like they're an old character design Viv had that never got to the screen until now. But I'd never seen him, so it was quite odd that it was framed like this, until I was editing episode 1 of this review, and I saw this in the pilot. All of these characters are seen in this episode, later on. And here is Zestial, just hanging out. Wow. So Zestial is such an ancient demon lord that he speaks in ye old English. It reads as someone who hasn't really been out much between 1400 and now, and like he's only just starting to learn modern English piecemeal throughout the centuries as he comes out of his cave to investigate things. Alistair and him have a very interesting conversation. The very first moment Zestial appears, Al seems nervous, a condition we've never seen him in. He's always confident, but in front of Zestial he cowers slightly and aggressively tells the eggs to shut up. It reads to me like he actually knows Zestial's capabilities and realizes he doesn't have 100% confidence that he'd win in a fight. Despite this air of tension, their conversation is respectful, cordial, even friendly. Zestial is constantly poking at Alistair for weaknesses, but with Al's playful replies, it almost comes off more like friendly banter. I think this is the closest thing that a demon lord can have to a friend. Kind and polite conversation with heavy undertones of "I will use any information you reveal against you." We see that these friendships can get closer, but it certainly seems to be the closest kind of friend that Alistair has. I also love how people react to Zestial. Everyone cowers in fear from him. Some would rather burn alive than be seen by him, as if it's the better option to whatever he can conjure, and some are just so enthralled to see him that they have to have a picture. It really comes off as someone who's been around a while and who everyone knows. His power and presence is felt simply by him walking down the street and everyone else evacuating. Alistair is the only one not immediately in shock and awe of him, and he's still wary. Zestial says that Alistair's disappearance was thought to be due to one of the exterminations, but Alistair shrugs it off as a little holiday. Zestial then prods about him funding the hotel, but Alistair doesn't tell him why, asking to hear the theories. It's a very meta comment. Zestial finally relents that he'd rather not guess at the inner machinations of Alistair's mind. Alistair takes Zestial thinking of him as an enigma, as a compliment, coming from a demon as ancient as Zestial. They travel to this building where Alistair messes with the camera equipment. It's not a V camera, but I do like to think that he's doing this to annoy Vox. Either way, he's screwing with whoever's on the other end of this. He tells the eggs to guard the entrance so they won't follow him inside and cramp his style, but one egg boy called Frank follows anyway.
We have names?
Inside we see all the demon lords assembling for a meeting, or at least most of them. Every one of these people we saw in the pilot, and many have been speculated on throughout the years, especially this one. Her name's Rosie. It's been guessed that she's a friend of Alistair's. I can't remember if it's been confirmed or if it's just people pattern-seeking. She's an old-timey demon with an ear-to-ear smile, so people assume that she has something to do with Al. To be fair, she does sit right next to him. Zizi here is fun, mostly A, because I love neon green, and B, because one of my special interests is dinosaurs, and she's just casually a feathered dinosaur. Like, no pomp around the fact they actually did a feathered dino, it's just like, yeah, this is how dinos are. But also this brings me to the scale discussion. It's canon that Vaggie and Charlie are about human-sized, with Charlie being on the upper bound of 5 foot, maybe even 6 foot, and Vaggie being around low to mid 5 foot. Husk is about the same height. Nifty must be around 3 feet tall. Alistair is 6 to 7 foot tall, and Angel is around 8 foot, so Zestial must be close to about 10, and Zizi... damn! This fire-headed demon reminds me of the lost souls from Doom, and we've seen more demons like him all around Hell. It could just be that he's one of a type, like a hellhound or an imp. Like, this is a form that demons or sinners can appear in, and he's just a particularly strong one that rose up to be an overlord. Speaking of seeing this kind of demon around a lot, it's fun to see how the little background characters are so frequently seen too. I joke about Travis appearing everywhere, but considering how small this ring actually is, it makes sense that we see these designs over and over again. This cactus cowboy was seen in the pilot. This spiky Cyclops demon was seen in the last episode as a cameraman for Vox, but also as a boom operator for Val in episode 4. So he's just a stagehand who works at V Tower. It's a kind of consistency that I find quite fun. Then another overlord walks in. Carmilla, the demon Pentius bought weapon parts from. We know she's the most powerful weapons dealer in Hell, so she's not known for her small arms. She begins the meeting, commenting that the extermination deadline puts the souls they deal in at risk. This frames souls in Hell more like stocks or shares or money that can be affected by a market crash. She respectfully welcomes Zestial, implying that this isn't a frequent visit, which backs up my earlier claim about him only learning English bit by bit through his occasional trips out. She then comments on Alistair returning, seemingly somewhat getting to him by saying that they barely noticed he'd left. We learn that the extermination this year was worse than ever, and before we get much further into the meeting, it's interrupted by Velvet, loudly talking on the phone to Vox and disrespecting the other overlords. I would say to their faces, but only sometimes. Notice that she's not even facing them half the time. The other Vs aren't coming, so Vel is representing them. It seems Carmilla has little love for the Vs, and seeing as their tower kind of separates them from the other lords, I suppose that does make sense. The Vs seem to be a more recent and up-to-date kind of overlord than the others, and they see them as fossils. Velvet contributes to the discussion directly. She presents the severed head of the angel that died in the extermination, and all the overlords look on with fascination and awe. I think this is the first time I've seen Rosie not smiling, but she does it a lot throughout the next scene. Carmilla's face here is interesting. She's stoic, but you can tell she's thrown off. She seems like she's the type to keep her cool under pressure, but you can still tell that she's reacting somewhat to the news. More on that in a bit. Velvet launches into a speech about fighting back against the angels now they know that they can die, but Zestial interrupts her in the most sassy way. Everyone's reaction to Zestial here is interesting. Zizi looks kind of bored and confused, almost as if this is the first interesting thing that's happened besides the angel. And Alistair and Rosie are amused, although to be fair, Alistair's always smiling. I've come to realise that you can't really understand Alistair without looking at his eyes. You can't gauge his emotion from his mouth alone, because he's always smiling, and it's a lot harder to notice what particular emotion is happening through his mouth. So if you look at his eyes, you can tell a lot more about what he's feeling. As for Rosie, she is capable of not smiling, so she seems to find this at least kind of amusing. This guy, however, seems kind of worried. I call him this guy as we have no name for him yet. Plus there's 2 other overlords that we see in the pilot that are missing from this meeting, also unnamed. It's strange how we know so little about this guy, but demons like him appear all over Hell, and he seems to have such an interesting reaction to Zestial's power play here. Zestiel brings up the fact that getting too blood-hungry over such little information is foolhardy, and that the V's really are inferior demon lords if they're willing to risk hell itself getting wiped off the map based on one severed head. While Vel points out that a severed angel head is evidence enough that they can die, Zestiel points out that they don't know how it died, and don't even know if a demon did it. It could have been infighting amongst the angels, could have been an accident, even if it was a sinner or a demon that killed it, they don't know how it died. I also love that Al has to have a taste of the dead angel. If there's one thing we know he likes, it's carrion. Zestiel comments on how trying to fight the angels without a plan could lead to reprisals, and heaven wiping all of hell out for its insolence. Here, Velvet notices something. An odd look from Carmilla, and she goes in for the kill on Zestiel. She disrespects him hard. Zestiel barely reacts and seems to be more concerned that a Lord of Hell is so stupid, or just that she's in his personal space. Before she can finish, and before Zestiel can respond,
You senile to make a real power grab?
You better show some respect!
Carmilla jumps in to defend him in song. This is a great song, and I really like it. But this is the best example I can find of that problem that I've been hinting at for the last 3 episodes now. The second biggest problem I have with Hazbin Hotel. The song just starts. One thing I've learned from watching Sideways and other music reviewers, and musical theatre YouTubers specifically, is that the Disney Renaissance movies had the right idea about musical numbers, and since we have a Disney Princess in Hell, you'd think they'd take this whole idea. Since song is a step up on the spectrum of emotion from dialogue, it makes sense to make the transition seamless. When emotion becomes too much for you to talk, you sing. When it becomes too much to sing, you dance. It's a spectrum. It makes sense, therefore, as part of this same spectrum, that when emotion is becoming too great, and a song is coming on, you keep dialogue going into a song. You begin the music before the lyrics, or otherwise lead into a song. In this song about Vox and Alistair's rivalry, I mentioned that the best thing this show does is build the musical vamp under Vox's speech here. His emotion is growing too much for his words, and we can hear it building in the music, so him beginning to sing isn't as much of a shock.
That fucker's back!
Yeah, I thought he was gone for good too.
It's been 7 years!
A shockingly abrupt song has its use, like in The Princess and the Frog, where Husk's VA Keith David sings as Dr. Facilier, the Shadow Man. This song begins as an angry rebuttal to the prince's valet commenting on Dr. Facilier's lack of trustworthiness and the fact that he's a con artist.
Sire, this chap is obviously a charlatan. I suggest we move on to a list.
Don't you disrespect me, little man!
The sudden nature of the beginning of this song puts us in the valet's shoes, in shock, and shows the sudden and brutal rage of this voodoo shaman. But it works because we see Facilier's face fall, and a low musical growl begins just as he's about to sing. We see that he's mad for just long enough for us to know that he is, before the song starts. We're shocked by the sudden nature of the song, but we know where the emotion is coming from. With Carmilla, we saw a kind of despondent expression from her here, but the show takes every effort to hide her face until she breaks into song. I understand what they were going for with this. It is a sudden surprise, but we had no idea that she was this upset or even angry. Her expression looked more sad or distracted. She's been nothing but cool and collected, hiding her emotion behind a rehearsed veil of stoicism, so her blowing up like this is out of character. Which is confirmed later in the episode. If we'd have seen her face twisting more and more in anger as this tirade continues, if we'd hear her trying to add her own thoughts in while the egotistical Velvet ignores her, if we'd have seen little cutaways to her reaction to the beratement of Zestiel or the prodding about the angel, we'd have had the context that we need, but we don't. It seems super out of character, which we later learn that it is, but we don't know why she's acting like this, and a move this jarring needs explanation. We get that explanation later in the episode, but we didn't even know that this emotion was here until now. I understand that it kind of puts us in Zestiel's shoes, since we see that Zestiel is concerned for her, but it just feels sudden, it feels jarring, and not in the good way. It almost feels to me like they had to put a certain number of songs in here. I'm not exactly speculating on that point. I don't think that they have some kind of quota that they should meet, but it almost feels like it with how sudden this is. If she's a character of extreme mood swings, or values respect over her own image, trusts Zestiel implicitly, and hates to see him disrespected, or if this is a trauma-based reflexive action like we learn that it is in the next scene, we should have some setup for it. Otherwise, she just suddenly starts singing with no motivation, despite the obvious emotion behind the lyrics. Many of the other songs have begun in this way, including the first one in the show. Like, we know where Charlie's emotion comes from, if you've seen the pilot, and we know her character, and we've seen that she's excited, but there's no musical accompaniment in this moment.
But the extermination just happened. What could they want this soon after...
I can do this.
She calms herself down to sing here. It's sudden, but it's not super terrible, like this one. Her song with Pentious, we know her well enough now to know where this comes from, and the slow fade-in from Pentius's tear-blurred eyes gives us enough of a lead-in. Just about. I can excuse that, but only just. The song with Adam makes perfect sense. We hear the musical vamp underneath as she's talking, she's rushing about, trying to get everything out quickly, like it's obvious where the energy comes from for this song.
Oh, fuck! Okay, I've got a lot to get through and not a lot of time, and I feel like you weren't hearing me before, so here goes.
This one and Vox's song are the only ones that I have no issues with at all. The rest have been excusable up until now. Velvet even specifically says that when the angel's face came out, that Carmilla turned red, but we didn't see that.
'Cause when I brought out the angel's head, couldn't help but observe that your wrinkled face was turning red.
So the characters know more about what's going on than we do, which, I mean, kind of makes sense, but with us having an omnipotent view of everything, you'd think that we'd have seen it too. It's kind of an odd choice, is my point. Anyway, the song starts with Carmilla demanding Velvet respect the lords, and that they're not going to listen to her if she's just going to insult them. Vel begins to rap about how she's the hottest new lord in hell, and she commands respect through trends, clout, and social media. This is where we hear her call herself the backbone of the V's. Her expression here really sells this too, especially when we consider what we see in a second. She comments that the overlords being too scared to fight is why she can't respect the other overlords, calling them irrelevant.
Hey, irrelevant!
Zestiel rebukes that they can't act without more intelligence.
You lost your relevance.
We can't act without more intelligence.
More on this line in a bit. She specifically says that she could take all of them on, but even though I faintly respect her capability, I highly doubt it. She comes off as a clout-chasing influencer more than a demonic presence. She's clearly savvy, but not wise. More rice gum than Sun Tzu.
Irrelevant!
Carmilla, saying that the V's are smug and stupid, never taking advice or warnings from people who know better, is right, honestly. Velvet deflects this criticism by attacking Carmilla's character, calling her quick to anger, and commenting on the face she noticed earlier. She suspects Carmilla not wanting war, while being the one who sells weapons for war, and comments that this might have a deeper meaning that she's letting on. We see Zestiel concerned over Carmilla's anger. Velvet then goes the extra step of saying that Carmilla knows what happened to the angel, commenting that if it weren't for her disrespect she'd have never figured it out. Carmilla disbands the meeting without comment.
That was a productive meeting.
Velvet leaves with one final insult. Zizi comments that they just got here. She's the only demon lord besides Alistair, Velvet, Zestiel, Carmilla, and these two to get a speaking role, and she's uncredited. Huh. Here we learn that these two, who we saw earlier working for Carmilla, are actually her daughters. Before she can offer an explanation to them, she leaves, and Zestiel follows unprompted. As the other lords leave, Alistair tells Frank to go follow Carmilla, Zestiel, and the two daughters, both of whom seemingly haven't got credited voice actors either. We cut back to Angel's trust-building idea. Bondage, of course it's something like this. Vaggie finally shows her disapproval, but only once she's in the door? Again, she's kind of acting out of character for the sake of the joke. Angel says it requires a lot of trust, but no one else is buying it. Husk is the only one kind of getting into a bit of a massage, but Nifty being Nifty makes him think again.
I'm ready to punish some bad boys.
Never mind, I'm out.
This is the second most uncomfortable scene we see Charlie in. The first is in the next episode. She tries to let him down gently, though, but Vaggie has to calm her down and take over. It kind of makes me wonder if Charlie's, like, biromantic but asexual. She seems very uncomfortable around these things at all times. We see a lot more of that in the next episode. Charlie once again tries to steer the trust exercises into a more reasonable direction, but Vaggie is more adamant than ever that she'll get it right. She turns to the method she learned to trust people. Open combat! Yes, this is big for Vaggie's lore, but we'll get into that. Here's that cactus demon again. He ran away from Zestial and blew off steam by joining a gang war, apparently. Busy guy. Vaggie says that no bond is stronger than that of brothers in arms, so she throws Penchus and Angel into an active gang war. Nifty, of course, wants to be thrown down, but Charlie stops it. Doesn't stop Nifty for long, though. Husk is seen in these establishing shots and then backs away to avoid the situation. I love that. We hear in the next episode that he's seen his fair share of conflict, though. We also know that Angel has seen a lot too, but Penchus can't fight without his minions. He knows a thing or two about relying on people, but only those under his complete control. Angel being a lone wolf with only one proven friend, and Penchus needing full domination to feel safe, makes sense for their characters, and forcing them together like this is an interesting way to break those molds. Charlie denies this, but Vaggie says it's the only way they'll learn. Charlie wants them to find a method that may take more time but is more humane, while Vaggie says they don't have that time anymore thanks to the new deadline. She then reveals that this is more about helping Charlie than about helping the others. She wants to prove that she can help Charlie's dreams come true. She pins her own value on what she can offer to her partner and not her own merits, which I'm sure a lot of us can relate to. Infuriatingly, instead of talking it out, she tells Charlie to leave her alone. Charlie walks away, bringing the newly brutalized Angel and Penchus with her. We cut back to Carmilla and Zestial. He asks her what's up and she refuses to talk. He specifically says that losing her composure is out of character, so I'm glad that it's not just me that thinks that. Oh, according to the subtitles, this kid is Clara. But Amazon X-Ray still refuses to tell me her VA. According to BehindTheVoiceActors.com, this kid's called Odette, but that doesn't tell me their VA either. Travis gets a voice credit, but the daughters of Carmilla don't. What the... Carmilla's daughters tried to convince her to open up, but she shuts them down. Zestial then convinces her to open up, and she begins a song about it. This is the song that I have the most problem with. This is my number one problem with Hazbin Hotel right now. Both of these songs in this episode are amazing. There is talent on display here, and I don't want this to reflect negatively on any of the actors involved. But my biggest problem is that Carmilla doesn't begin the song. Zestial does. His one line in the last song is fine. I can see it as him contributing to the conversation. It barely sounds like he's singing, it's more like he's speaking in rhythm.
We can't act without more intelligence.
This, however, is a full-blown song. Remember how I said he speaks in Shakespearean English? Do you know how awkward a song sounds with a thou in it? Zestial is a demon so ancient that he can't speak modern English. He is so out of touch with modern society that him coming to a meeting is a delight. He is so powerful and eldritch that people would rather set themselves on fire than look at him. But he's seen singing in the rain. Like, this man is a musical theatre fan. He does not need to express his emotion through song. He expresses his emotion through curses not yet understood by the minds of men. Not to mention, there's no build-up again.
What weighs on your soul, old friend?
We have no idea of the relationship between Carmilla and Zestial. They talk like respectful business partners here. He kind of looks concerned here. These imply an arm's length between the two, but Carmilla fights for his respect, and he kinda inserts himself into a private situation without welcome or invitation as if he's a close friend. It has to be assumed that they have some past, some interplay, but we get none of it until he intrusively begins singing to her. It would not only make the song less sudden, but be consistent with Zestial's character if this were spoken. Make it rhyme, make it on beat, but him singing these lines is strange. Make it a sonnet, a poem. He's got the Shakespearean vibes. Plus it adds an ample lead in time to get us used to the idea that a song is coming, to feel the emotion build up in the room before Carmilla sings. Instead, for some reason, one of the most horrific demons we've seen in hell as of yet has enough emotion for this family to begin musical theatre singing for some unknown reason. It sucks too, because these two songs are wonderful. This one especially is a beautiful piece about protecting your loved ones. Carmilla reveals that she killed the angel to protect her children from it. It's intercut wonderfully with Vaggie singing about protecting Charlie and her ideals. Carmilla sings about being a keeper to her kids. Vaggie sings about being a suit of armour for Charlie. Carmilla is looking to provide for her charges, and Vaggie is looking to protect hers. Carmilla never wanted to kill anything. In fact, she implies that she's never spilled blood before now, despite being a weapons dealer. That or she left it all behind a long while ago, and this is the first time after swearing to never kill again. She also specifically says that another reason to keep the secret about the angel is that hell would rise up in war against heaven, and she doesn't want that. As we've seen from Velvet, she's right. She doesn't want to lose her children to war, or even to a single angel. When she sings specifically about keeping her people safe, she also looks to Zestial. Either she's saying she'll also keep him safe, or she's asking him non-verbally to keep this secret for her and her family. Seriously, what kind of relationship do they have? Alistair and Zestial were just as cordial as Zestial is to Carmilla, and yet you get the impression that if Alistair told Zestial that he had a big secret like this, then it would be used against him. I'm getting mixed messages from the show about these two. Vaggie sings that Charlie was the one person to make her feel like hell was worth living in, that Charlie understood her, and that she was so used to being misunderstood and treated poorly that Charlie made her feel like she wasn't in hell anymore. She says that she can't articulate how she feels about this enough into words, so she'll keep protecting Charlie. I love how both specify, "I'll make the mistakes," like Carmilla and Vaggie want to be the ones onto which all of the blame falls to protect their charges. The song also kind of stops suddenly. We then see Frank returning to Alistair, reporting what he heard.
Interesting. Let's keep this between us.
Back at the hotel, Vaggie returns to Charlie. She apologizes for freaking out, and Charlie apologizes for putting pressure on her. She says that they work better as a team, and that they'll work things out eventually. Plus, she cheers her up by stating that her plan worked, showing the residents of the hotel joking about the combat scenario they entered, and showing each other a newfound respect. Although Nifty is still Nifty. Alistair comes back, saying that the minions were useful, so he didn't get rid of them. And Vaggie, in the spirit of trust, lets Pentious have them back as long as he doesn't use them for evil. Pentious goes to sleep while hearing about Frank's adventure with the dinosaurs, the old guy, and the woman who killed an angel, that Alistair told him not to talk about. We dodge a cliché here, luckily, as Pentious is kinda slow on the uptake, tired, and knows just how stupid his egg boys are, dismissing this story as fantasy and claiming they'll see Martians tomorrow. Wait, Martians? Oh no. I'm making an audiobook about Martians. Jeff Wayne made a musical based on the book. It's been on Broadway. Broadway is where we get most of the actors, including Keith David, who plays a demon in hell controlled by voodoo magic, who was also in hell as Spawn, controlled by a powerful demon, and also had voodoo powers like Alistair when he was Dr. Facilier. Why is everything in my life connected? Why autism? Damn you! Anyway, they cuddle up into a cute pile and go to sleep. This episode has a lot more lore implications to study. There'll be some crackpot theorizing here, so a bit of a warning. Let's start with the biggest stretch, and the biggest lore tidbit. Carmilla. So we know Carmilla killed an angel. How was she able to succeed where others had failed? Well, I have some theories, but first, what's the connection between her and Vaggie? Wait, what connection? I hear you cry. Well, there's clearly some similar motives, as they both sing about keeping those they care about safe, but there's more connections than just that. Firstly, they both have this odd purple-grey skin tone. Both are Hispanic. Both heavily feature grey and white in their designs. Both have an affinity for weapons. Both have put their fighting days aside for something more mundane. And both dress and act like savvy businesswomen. I'm not saying she's Carmilla's long-lost daughter or anything. I mean, her daughters all have red eyes and Vaggie doesn't. But there are similarities here. We learn that Vaggie learned to trust others through combat, and that's all we know. So, was she part of Carmilla's cartel before joining Charlie? Was she in the army, or maybe the navy, before falling to hell? Is that why she's in hell, because she killed people? But there is one explanation that opens up more lore implications for Hazbin, but it is a stretch. Even if it's not true, a demon killing an angel raises questions outside of my odd pet theories. Back in the beginnings of the Hazbin craze, there was a bit of a fringe theory that Vaggie was an angel. She's designed after a moth, so she may have wings somewhere. Her eye is missing and marked out with a cross, like the other exorcists, and she is very proficient with her exorcist spear. We know Carmilla sells exorcist weapons. She displays them everywhere in her office, and in the meeting building. I seem to recall hearing these weapons were usually found in hell abandoned by the angels during the Purge, who left them behind. They're rare and expensive, hence why in Helverboss lowlives like Stryker can only afford one with royal money at his back. Carmilla has a lot of exorcist weapons. So what if she's not finding them? What if she's manufacturing them? In Paradise Lost, the most accepted pop cultural depiction of Lucifer's fall to hell, as well as a few other depictions, the story goes that when he rebelled against God, Lucifer built up an army of other angels to follow him. They lost the battle when the Spirit of Christ fought alongside God's loyal angels, and all the rebels cast into hell for their penance. They built a grand palace and plot against heaven's creation, leading to the temptation of Eve and Adam. Some of the angels that fell from heaven include Beelzebub and Mammon. In the Hazbin Hotel franchise, Hell of a Boss included, we hear nothing about fallen angels except for the example of Lucifer himself. Now, it's likely that they don't have other fallen angels in this hell, but Lucifer is a known egotist. He's also got a bit of a silver tongue. Knowing that demons in hell wouldn't take too kindly to angels living amongst them, even if they are former angels, let's say he hides their presence, presenting them as naturalized demons, or even as some of the first sinners, with the added bonus that now he's the prominent name in hell's history, and no longer a warmonger. Any angel that didn't like this idea, even if it were for their own safety, and saw through Lucifer's egotistical goals, may have been given power over souls in hell and become a powerful overlord or a lord of sin to keep them happy. What if Carmilla is a fallen angel, who left behind her life of fighting once heaven beat them for good, and cast them into the pit? She's got an odd glow to her that isn't explained, despite what may be a mundane fact that her shoes are made of metal. Her children are named Clarity and Wealth, which do sound more heavenly than other names that we've seen in hell. Carmilla itself means a garden in Hebrew. It sounds pretty biblical, to say the least. Her name Carmine means purple or red, which makes sense because her skin can be described as carmine, but it also can mean a song. Angels are frequently associated with songs and choruses. It's rare to see a demon with her monochromatic colour scheme too, but not an angel. The exorcists are frequently black and white. So, what if she's so hesitant to fight angels because she's done it once before? What if the only creature capable of killing an angel is another angel? Maybe one of these fallen angels was given the job of looking after Lucifer's own daughter, and in the process of safeguarding her fell in love. Like I said, it's a stretch, but it opens up a lot of implications for Hazbin Hotel's hell. As for the mundane speculation, the relationship with Zestiel is odd. She seems to implicitly trust him, maybe simply that they both share a worldview that hell shouldn't be plunged into war. But I wouldn't trust him. Alistair doesn't trust him. Other lords seem to be frightened of him. The relationship between the other lords is fun too. While we don't see much of Zizi in this fiery deer overlord, yes, that's the actual name from the fan wiki, real creative guys, I'd like to see more of these lords, like their domains especially. Same with Rosie. We never hear her speak. I'd like to know if she's really friends with Alistair. The pilot is canon, and in that we see her using the extermination as an excuse to off her business partner, with help from Carmilla, Odette, and Clara. Who was her partner, and why did she kill her? What's the relationship like between the V's and the Overlords? We know it's not friendly, but why? Is it just because they're obnoxious? They're so separate that it's odd. Speaking of separate lords, what happened to these three? Two. Do the two heads count as two characters? Either way. They seem related. They both have similar avian designs. The theatrical designs as well. In the spirit of creative names, I'll label these two as Dramatis and Personae, and together they're Showbiz. I'll call this one Starrakeet for now. And this one is Charles, because he's on fire, like Char, get it? Either way, why didn't these two attend? There are 3 empty seats, one for each, and maybe one for some of the other lords that are listed on the fan wiki, like the Von Eldritch family. These guys read more to me as a powerful family in hell, akin to the Goatian demons or the Morningstar family, so I don't know. Likely this is just the seat for the V representative. It's obvious that Velvet is more of a cerebral power than she lets on, and she may be possibly the most dangerous of the Vs. The others are cunning to a degree, and powerful no doubt, but ruled by their emotions. Vel is able to pick up on little details fast, drive wedges where they need to be driven, and pull up information using sneaky tactics and an intelligent use of her obnoxious personality. She's a schemer, like Vox and Val, but she has the control to use her powers effectively. Not to give her too much credit, though, because she is egotistical and willing to throw caution to the wind for personal gain. She's street smart, not wise. Production. Animation in this episode is great, with only 1 or 2 minor flaws, like Vaggy's climbing animation here, and whatever's going on with Carmilla's earrings. Like, they have the hair going through them here, but not here, and she turns her head and they're different again. Besides that, it's up to the same amazing standard, with all the fun little character details that they usually have. I love watching Husk sneak away in the background here. I love the animation of this explosion and Vaggy's expression. The transitions in this song are amazing. The color switch in this song reminds me of the mood shifts in JoJo, and catches the same tonal change brilliantly. All the musical numbers, despite my misgivings, are great, and every vocal talent responsible for them should be proud. They're very catchy, and they're some of my favourites in the show. The visuals are gorgeous, and even the characters I think shouldn't sing well. I love the little Spanish guitar flares in Carmilla's verses. The music really matches both characters singing.
Check your behavior. You've got it twisted.
The vocal talent, in general, is amazing. James Monroe Iglehart has been with the franchise since the beginning, it seems, and kills it as Zestiel. His eerie, sometimes raspy delivery.
If we rush to war without knowing mightn't, they purge all of hell for daring an uprising.
And the effects on it give the impression that Zestiel almost speaks and exists in a physical form only for our benefit, like he's bound to the world only by his choice. He gives the impression of a wise and ancient being beyond the lines of good and evil, that uses the world as his own chessboard. Daphne Rubin Vega does a great job at every aspect of Carmilla. The cold and calculating cartel leader, the aggressive attack dog, and the weary but loving mother. Plus her vocal performance while belting is amazing. In this episode we see more of Stephanie Beatrice's ability as a singer, allowing her to stretch out more than in the first episode, and putting her on par with Vega's performance, both of them balancing and enhancing each other very well. I'd love to comment on more voice actors, but despite seeing 6 new characters in this episode, only 5 of them speak, and only 2 of them are credited. Zestiel and Carmilla are credited, but Zizi, Odette, and Clara aren't, and Charles here doesn't even get a line. As a voice actor myself, I hate to see this. I thought we'd moved past not crediting people. My only guess is that these are not the official voices, and that they were going to be chosen later with them grabbing whoever they had at hand. Either that, or the actors didn't want to be credited. It's a shame, because Zizi's voice is really fun. Just her one line makes me want to hear her more.
What the hell? We literally just got here.
And Odette and Clara both capture a wonderful air of worry and desperation that shows that they're quite capable actors.
Sign, please. Thank you for your business. Enjoy your Carmine purchase. Mother?
Mom, maybe he should know.
Somehow, news sites keep incorrectly parroting that Jason Statham, of all people, played Zestial, who isn't even British, and that Mick Lauer played Travis, which he doesn't. Travis being a guy who doesn't even speak in these 4 episodes, and yet no one will report on these actors. Shameful, and I mean that without hyperbole. The writing in this episode is fun, though. I love the interplay with the overlords, and they capture the subtle game of chess being played by these high-level demons well. I also love the lyrics in these songs. However, all it would take would be a few little tweaks in regards to the beginning of these songs, and I'd put this episode on par with episode 2. For now, it's unfortunately at 3rd place in my ranking of these 4 episodes. It's not that episode 3 is bad at all. It's just that episode 4 is that goddamned good.